Good morning and welcome to our fourth and final webinar in the series. I'm Graham Foxwell, as you may have seen from the previous webinars, which hopefully you've watched before this one. And I wear the hat of Product Marketing Lead here at Kyocera UK for ICT Solutions and Content Services. But put those fancy titles aside, my job is just to make sure that you get the most out of your digital transformation journey that we're on with this AP webinar series. Today, we are going to be diving headfirst into digital transformation landscape and exploring all the fantastic opportunities that it brings to enhance your accounts payable process. We will be chatting about things like return on investment and scalability, and we'll be keeping an eye on the future as well, with some insights into Gen Z and Alpha, as per the title of this particular webinar. So I've got my trusty colleagues here today. As you saw, we've got Simon Godfrey and Bob Mitton right here with me, and they will introduce themselves in a bit and share their expertise with you. As before in the previous sessions, it should clock in at about 30 minutes or less, maybe less, depending on the questions at the end. And also remember, like our previous webinars, we're all ears for your questions, but please use the Q&A at the top of your screen. So if you look at the top of your screen, there'll be like a Q&A button. Click on that and put your questions in there, and then we'll answer those at the end, so we can plow through the actual webinar, and then we'll answer your questions right at the end. So any burning questions, stick them in there. And also a quick heads up, as per the other webinars that we've done, we are recording this session. So if you miss anything or want to relive the magic of the previous sessions and this one, you'll find them online afterwards. So without further ado, I will hand you over to my colleague, Simon.
Yes, Graham. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us again today. For those of you who weren't here for our first few webinars, my name's Simon Godfrey and I head up the content services team here at Kyocera. In essence, the content service team help organisations who are relying on manual processes, the storage of documents in a secure and compliant manner, and customers who just want to convert archives of paper into digital documents. So here we are in the final webinar of the series, and over the last few sessions we've covered off some of the processes that we can automate to enable organisations to be more efficient, increase productivity, improve accuracy, leverage resource and help the environment. And as I say, over the first couple of webinars, we looked at how we could take an invoice that we've captured from an inbox, extract all the data fields that we would normally manually key into our ERP, through the matching approval process and subsequently inputting this data into our finance system before we file it away in a secure and compliant way. And today in our final webinar, we will look at how we can maximise the investment in this technology so that it can deliver a fast return on your investment, and how this technology can easily be expanded into other areas of your organisation in the future, should you wish to. We call it landing and expanding. We'll also look at the impacts of Gen Z and Alpha as they come into the workspace, although Alpha is probably a little bit further away as they're only just being born as we speak. So, but before we go on, let's do a quick recap of the series so far. Initially, we showed you how we could potentially cut data entry by 95% through our clever AI and machine learning capture tools. We then showed you how we could process that electronic document through the matching process so we could make sure that we had a PO, a GRN or delivery note. We then looked at how we could get that invoice approved, even if someone was out of the office, via tasks and email notifications. And lastly, we showed you how we could add this information into an ERP. And in our last webinar, we showed you how we could control the information you had in a digital filing cabinet to give you a secure digital archive, give you all the information and audit trails to see who did what and when, help with remote working. You could literally access a document from anywhere in the world, provided that you had access to see it and an internet connection. Help with compliance and governance so that we're keeping the right information for the right lengths of time. And I know we're a manufacturer of printers, but do we really need to print off every invoice that we process? What are the implications of doing the same thing as we've always done on our environment? And over the course of the webinars, we've highlighted the fact that businesses still print paper, how a lot of them still manually key information into business applications like ERPs, how they physically store pages in filing cabinets, and in a lot of cases, they pay to have documents stored off-site. All of this has a cost to your business, a cost that basically technology could take away from. If we look at this price again, but with a financial view on the process, when an invoice comes in, we tend to print it. That has a cost. When an employee, when we employ a person to manually key that information into a finance system, those people are on a salary. But if we say that on average it takes between 3 to 7 minutes to key the data in that we need, each invoice could be costing us between £1.50 and £2 to process. Now, let's say that you're a mid-sized company processing 3,000 invoices per month. It could be costing you a minimum of £4,500 a month to process these invoices. Software can do that at a fraction of the cost. Now, I'm not saying that we have to make people redundant in order for you to see a return on your investment. But what could you do with the extra time that that employee now has? How much extra revenue could your business make if these staff were repurposed? How about giving even better customer service because the staff have more time to focus on the customers rather than those manual repetitive tasks? What are your growth plans for your business? If you want to grow by 30%, do you need to bring in another employee? Well, that's a cost of £25,000 on average per head per person. Software could pick up the slack and because your existing employees have more time, so you don't need to bring that person in. On our previous webinar, we talked about a company in London who saw a saving of £26,000 a year because they were able to digitise the paper that was in the filing cabinets. It took up hundreds of square feet per month of floor space. Taking the paper out of the equation is usually one of the quickest ways to see an ROI. So when we talk about ROI, typically we're able to show customers a very quick return on their investment in an initial project, normally within the first 3 to 6 months. A lot of the time, sorry, I'm sliding too far forward here. A lot of the time, the solutions that we offer are cloud hosted. And I want you to think of that as a Swiss Army knife. You get all the functionality to deal with your initial project, but you don't need to stop there. I bet there are requirements to automate manual processes within other parts of your business. The fact is that you have most of the tools already in the product to do that. Yes, you might need to add a few more users and maybe some more storage. But in a lot of instances, you're not having to buy another module to do what you need to do. Our approach is also different because we like to give you the tools through training to be able to do some of that simple work at the back end yourself. If you had to come to us every time you wanted to make a change to the system and we hit you with a bill for 3 to 5 days of consultancy, you're less likely to see the value of that solution. So we train you to do some of that work yourself, do those simple tasks. That said, we wouldn't expect you to build out a new solution in your HR department when the initial project was set up for accounts payable. We are here to help to grow the application across your business, the land and expand approach. So that said, as we said throughout the course of this webinar series, we start in finance. 70% of the projects do, because businesses are still hyper reliant on paper and manual process. The second area where we tend to go is HR, because there are an awful lot of worries about retaining the correct information. Remember, we talked previously about those PPI style organisations that specialise in subject access request claims. Making sure we hold the right information for the right amount of time is now critical to our businesses. Other areas where we can help: sales and marketing, so we can make sure that the right version of a document can go out to a customer. Operations and production, where SOPs are prevalent and we need to have an audit trail to make sure that the employees have read and understood a particular document. IT tend to like us because, as I said before, most of the installations we deploy these days are in the cloud, so there's very little resource for them to manage. The list goes on, but it goes back to our land and expand approach. If we can show you a strong return on investment from your initial project, why not sweat the asset? Keep leveraging that ROI. Now, the last thing I want to focus on today is Gen Z. And as I said before, I guess Gen Alpha, but they won't be entering the workspace for a few more years yet. But if we look at Gen Z, these are the kids that were born between 1997 and 2012. My son was at the start of Gen Z, and I look at his life. He's grown up with technology. He saw me use my first laptop back in 2001, and I had to plug my line into the phone socket so I could dial up to get my emails. He's been obsessed by gaming right back from when I got my first PlayStation back in 1998. Then there was the dawn of the internet, the smartphone, the list goes on. But my point here is that this generation has seen technology advance like no other generation in our lifetime. They're connected to 2 or 3 devices most of the time. Their hand-eye coordination has advanced so much when you compare it to somebody of my generation. They shop, do banking, order food from loads of different organisations that deliver to their door, all at the touch of a button. They don't even deal with paper. My son doesn't even carry cash. It's all Apple Pay. So put them in an office where everything looks like it did in the 70s, where they're asked to find a file in a box that's stored in the attic, or a contract that's stored in a CRM. But that might not be the correct document, because I'm sure that I heard someone in the office say that they changed that contract for the customer last week. It's chaotic. If we don't start to invest in our business systems, then this new generation of employee will vote with their feet. They will go to employers who have invested. Do you really want to go through the recruitment, the onboarding, the training for it all to happen over and over again? I see a huge uplift coming in these kinds of technologies over the next couple of years, mainly because Gen Z are the ones that are going to be making the decisions. And don't get me started on where AI is going to take, because that's another webinar series right there on its own. Technology is coming whether we like it or not. It's just a question of when you join the trend, and we can definitely help you with that. Now, I'm going to hand you over to my colleague Bob, but this demo is going to be a little bit different. In the previous demos, we've shown you the front end of the system, and we've shown you how we can process that invoice for finance. We've shown you how we can access the information from any location. We've shown you how we can set a retention policy and see an audit trail. But today, Bob's going to show you the back end of the system, so we can emphasize that Swiss Army knife capability of this solution, how you could expand it to other departments without needing to add any additional additional modules, but add some users and maybe some storage. We want to show you that there really is a technology that you can keep leveraging that ROI. Sound good? So over to you, Bob.
Thanks, Graham and Simon. Right, okay, this is well-timed one for me. I was talking to a customer yesterday of some 6 years. So been using our products for about 6 years now, and archiving away transactional documents like invoices. Speaking to their HR director, who now wants to look at the HR function and expand into that area of the business and support 7 countries. Main driver for this is the internal processes and, to a certain extent, GDPR. For each country, it will be totally different, so we need to segment that down. And so we've planned a workshop where we can enable their users to do some of the work around that, and we will assist. Okay, so fairly easy one for me today. We'll look at the back end of the system and where we can do the configuration. And I say we because that particular customer, they've got an internal user who phones me up on a regular basis to ask a few questions. I give her some guidance and she goes off and does the configuration herself. It's a fairly consistent and easy to use and navigate UI. It's grown up over a number of years now, more years than I care to remember. So down, it's grouped in fairly sensible manner. We have general, we have capture, so we've got document processing, so scanning, capture from folders. We have forms, indexing, so how to index the documents away automatically into the system without any manual intervention. Document storage, and we'll come to file cabinets and how they will work shortly. But we've already mentioned integration into other systems. One of the most common ones, Outlook email. Very often customers will say to us that they have lots and lots of documents coming in via email now. In fact, some of them even have documents coming into the organisation. They then print them out and also scan them back into the system at the back end. So not very friendly for the planet and not very friendly for your pocketbook if you have to finance all of that going through the system. Much easier now to integrate in with Outlook or Exchange directly. Pick up the information automatically, index it away automatically into the file cabinet, which starts your audit trail that one step earlier. So no manual intervention. Pick up from Outlook email, store it away automatically with things like who sent it, what the name of the company was, and the document information as well. Your IT manager will love you for that because what you're doing is downsizing your email inbox. Okay, so user management, also quite important. If we click on that, as I say, very clean and easy to navigate user interface. We have a thing called roles, which can integrate in with AD groups. So if somebody works in the HR department, we can give them functional rights under the roles to match that HR group. That group can be imported from AD or AAD. We can create local users if we wish, but in most cases we'll integrate with your existing system to import your users, because in most cases we're not fortunate enough to have 8 users. Sometimes it will be many thousands. Let's take a look at one of the important components here, which is a cabinet. This is where your documents are securely stored. Once they're in here, we have a full audit trail behind it. We can also wrap around compliance rules and regulations to go with it. So the company I was talking to yesterday, they've actually written a policy that they didn't have previously. So that was their first task when I engaged with them. They've written a policy, and that will form the set of rules that will enable me to configure the cabinet for them. So things like retention policy, how long the document's got to be there for before we can destroy it, what happens when they're destroyed, what workflows that needs to go through to make sure that's all auditable and also secure. Cabinet then, it's a storage of documents, and there's a structure behind that which we call database fields or indexes. And this is quite nice because it's multilingual, and the field name can be anything to suit your business. It doesn't have to be a fixed field name, and that's really important for the users. The users will only see the fields that are relevant to them, and again that comes down to roles. We can define that per group. And the conversation yesterday was very much around a retention policy, and so we were looking at a retention date that would be added to these fields, which is something that can be done by the user themselves. Okay, we have some other usable features there as well. Simon mentioned what we would call document relations. So if a user goes in, we can set up some rules. If they search for a document, we can return all of the related documents so that the user doesn't have to go in and do multiple searches. They get everything back in one hit, which saves people a lot of time. Again, this is something I would expect an end user to be able to configure for themselves, so that you can do this as a feature of a role, or it can be by individual users. Next to that, you'll see, as I've mentioned before, a deletion policy. This will help us kick off a workflow and decide on when documents need to be disposed of and how they need to be disposed of. Sometimes it's just a two-step system where it will go into offline storage and then they can be dealt with at a later date, but all compliant with your GDPR policy. Okay, so I won't go into too much depth because I could talk about this for weeks. So back over to my colleagues to just close us down. Thank you.
Right, so hopefully over the series of these webinars and today we've shown you some more of the art of the possible, and again, how we can really integrate these types of solutions into your business to speed up process, take the workload off your staff's shoulders. And as we've shown you today, how we can potentially show you a really quick return on your investment. I'm going to wrap it up here, but I want to thank you for joining us over these webinar series. I hope you found them informative. As you'll see, we have gone through accounts payable, workflow, cloud storage, and now ROI. If you want to catch any of these sessions, they're available on our YouTube channel. You can click on the QR code shown on the screen and it'll take you to our page. Today's session is going to be added over the coming days. Remember, basically, if you guys have got any questions, if you want any further information, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to discuss how we can help you with your digitization strategy. But for one last time before we go, Mike, any questions?
Yes, Simon, there's been a couple that have been posted. First of which is, how many users can you add to the system?
So effectively, as many as you like. We've got customers that have got 2 or 3 users. We've got customers that have got thousands of user licenses available to them. Because it's in the cloud, we're just adding, well, and most of the time we're talking cloud solutions. You just add users and potential storage. So yeah, infinite.
Lovely. You talked about integration into finance systems. Can you also integrate into HR systems and Office 365?
So simple answer is yes, we can integrate into hundreds, if not thousands of applications, but probably more of a technical question that Bob can cover off.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a number of different methods that we use to integrate into systems. It's rare that we do an installation now without some form of integration to a third party. That's a conversation we can have with either internal IT at your organization or your supplier. Sometimes we need to get information from them, but it could be an API, it could be file transfer. The methods are many and varied.
Thanks, Bob. Random question. I have an archive, a room full of archive boxes. Can you help with that?
Well, yeah, it's not random at all, to be honest with you. Yeah, absolutely we can. So we have a partner that will come and collect all those boxes for you. Everything is scanned as they collect, so it's a secure transfer. They then take them back to a dedicated site where they are scanned into that facility. We can then go through the boxes and utilising a retention policy that you say that says, I don't know, any documents that are over the age of 8 years, we don't need. Anything else we need a digital copy from. We can sort through those documents and prep them. We can then create digital documents to scan back or send back to you. If you want, we can keep those boxes for a period of time just so that you've got that extra security that you want to check through the digital documents we've sent to you before you say, do you know what, this all looks fantastic, let's get rid of them. And then we destroy those documents and those boxes and give you a certificate to say that it's been done in a compliant manner. It all goes up to ISO and everything else. The whole idea from collecting from your office all the way through to the destruction is fully auditable and fully accredited.
Lovely. I've got one more that's come through as that we've got a bunch of large format plans. Are you able to scan these?
So yeah, same company. Basically the same process. We'll collect them. Large format isn't a problem. I mean, these guys, they scan historic books. They've got drones that can map out huge art installations or whatever and give you up to a football pitch, I suppose, of document size. So it really isn't a problem. But as I say, it's all done through a secure, auditable, controlled process. Anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Perfect. Look, guys, thank you for joining us through these sessions. I'm really hoping that you found them informative. As I say, this is just the touch of the iceberg on what we can do. So if you want to have a chat further with us, please reach out, scan the QR code, whatever you need to do. But yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
See you now.
Cheers.